I wanted to tell you, thank you very much for being here and giving me this possibility. And thank you to BHA School of Lighting, and to you and to Daniel. Tonight I'm gonna talk about the power of darkness and what is a darkness designer. Before going to that, I want to start with a little disclaimer. By talking about the darkness, I'm not gonna talk bad about lighting, which is my source of money, because I work as a lighting designer. I see the positive value of lighting on the illumination, people's health and well-being and activity levels with both short and long-term benefit. If we think about, for example, the human-centric lighting. And I mean, we know that lighting is fundamental for visual functions when we work. And it's also a matter of perception and emotion when we design. And there is, above all, last but not least, light has a biological effect. So if we think about the support on circadian rhythms. I really became more and more enthusiastic about talking about darkness because, well, partly because I became a father, so I'm thinking about the future of my kids and how important it is to design in a sustainable way. Secondly, I'm a space or astronomer enthusiast, so I like to watch the sky. I have a telescope on my own, an amatorial one though, but still very, very fun. And I noticed, I can tell you a little story. When I was a kid, I used to walk from home in the mountains, in the Alps, I'm in Europe, to the small citadel close to us. And it was so dark, I could not even see the street. And I mean, we didn't have flashlights. It was almost scary, but the sky was astonishing. We were able to see the Milky Way, the stars. And now I've been walking lately in that area, and it's impossible to see anything. I want to tell you a fun fact, actually, about light and about space. And it's technically light does not exist because light is just an electromagnetic wave. And the light itself, it's something that, let's say, our eyes together with our brain has invented. It's absolutely made up by Earth creatures. So the stars are dark. The space itself is dark. Our sun is dark. So everything is dark. What we see is just our interpretation of the brain together with the eyes of some electromagnetic particles. That's it. Talking about the actual let's say lighting pollution, there is several ways, at least a couple of ways of light pollution. There is the one we know on the Earth, but also nowadays also in the sky. So when I was a kid, I still remember there was almost like very little satellites in the sky, but nowadays it's field, and we can even see these small trains, which I saw with my bare eyes. Actually, they are somehow beautiful, but also interfering with the beauty of the nature in the dark sky. But coming back to Earth, do you know that to light up and to be able to read at night, we would need just about 4 lux, which is actually the amount of illuminance that a full moon will provide on your book. So that's it. You wouldn't need more than that. Still talking about the Earth, I want to show you a bit how it looks like nowadays, the light pollution in the world. As you can see, it's quite concentrated in the North America and Europe, and now in Asia is developing. And this happened not for some evil plan or some evil lord. It just happened to be. Like nobody really thought about this. But nowadays, the light pollution is increasing. And about 2% every year. And it's becoming a problem. I will tell you later why it's a problem. For now, I tell you among millions of quotes why light pollution has at least a teeny tiny positive aspects. And the positive aspect is what is able to tell about anthropology and about life, like humans. Among others, I love geopolitics. So if we look a bit more into details, we could see, for example, let's start from South America, for instance. You can see, for instance, you can already spot where people live and where there is a forest. But what light pollution tells us, for example, is a story. And for example, here is a story how Buenos Aires, the capital of Argentina, developed. If you watch carefully, you can see a sort of a web, a mesh of light, dots. And those dots were originally stations. So those were stations of railways that brought towards the inner side of the country where the cities has developed. The same thing has happened, for instance, in Russia with the Trans-Siberian railways, which connects the east to the west side of the country. And you can see a line with a lot of dots. And it's interesting, especially in Argentina, you could see they really were every 20, 30 kilometers. So it will look almost like a metro stations. You may think that light then tells where people live. It's not entirely true, because if we look at Africa, we know that we live more than 1 billion people here, but it's fairly dark. The illuminated part is just the north and the south. And the reason why is that 90% of the people has not access to electricity. So again, here the light pollution tells us a story. It tells a story of poorness and wealth. If we look at the north of Africa, we can see, for example, this is Egypt, and what you can see there is the Nile. You can really see where the population has migrated and where everybody's lived, because that's the only fertile area of the whole country. So 97 million people live there, and only basically 95% of the population is concentrated in this region. It's if you see it from the sky, it actually looks pretty astonishing, right? But we know that, I mean, this again is light pollution. Another river is also in Pakistan. What you can see next to Pakistan, and you will see this line between Pakistan and India. And what you see there, it's not a river, but is the biggest man-made opera visible from the space. So that one is the Pakistani and Indian border. And these guys, they have not been in very good relationship lately, so they start to flood the whole boundary, the whole border with the floodlights to see and to check on each other. Speaking of light pollution, the most polluted area of the world. Before going there, this is another interesting border that tells a story. This is the border between the North and South Korea. And what you can see here clearly from also another perspective is that there is really a difference where there's wealth and when there is not. So, for instance, in the North Korea, there is only 48% of the population get access to electricity, but there is almost no lights. Light pollution tells us a story about also history. So, this, for example, is what has happened in Syria, and you know that in Syria in 2012 it was before the civil war. We noticed that a few years later, after the civil war, unfortunately, there's been a deterioration of wealth and access to electricity. Here's Australia, and even here you can see that people live mostly on the to the western and the eastern side of Australia. And there is actually just a funny dot in the middle, which is it's called Alice Spring, which is a CIA and SAA base that operates spy satellites, and it's of course a US territory controlled area, and it's of thousands of kilometers far away from any ocean in a friendly country. If we look now at China and India, you can see that nowadays they're very little. And this has happened quite lately. Well, in China, it started quite early in 1975 when about 1 billion people moved from the countryside to the cities. While in India, it's a more close story. It's more recent in 2014 when the actual Prime Minister Narendra Modi chose to give electricity to all the Indians, at least as much as possible to the Indians. So it became very, very bright. And what you see now instead is this brightened and most polluted spot in the whole world. And this is an agglomerate of several cities like Guangzhou, Shenzhen, Hong Kong, and Macau. And this is pretty interesting because the sky, it's everywhere, everything but dark. If we look at the North America, this is actually interesting because here again, light tells us a story about development, and we find out that there is like a sort of a fictional line between that runs in the middle of the country around the 100th meridian, which divide the west to east. And on the west side, there is more dry and arid soil, so not very adapt for agriculture, while on the east part, there is more fertile and humid. And that, of course, help the agriculture and help also the development of humans and cities. Going to my Europe, we can see that it is really, really in a bad condition, speaking about light pollution. It's so polluted that just not the soil is lead polluted, but also the sea. So if you look carefully between the UK and Norway, you will see a lot of lead dots in the North Sea, and those are not islands. There is no island there. What you see there is like 170 offshore oil and gas rigs, and those particular lights are flares. It's gas that when you extract them, that burns in the air. And it's not only in Europe, but also, well, this is Asia, Europe, the Caspian Sea, and even worse in the Persian Gulf. It's so polluted from that point of view that it's almost impossible to see where the sea and where is the ground. But I want to tell you a story now about my city. This is Milan. Before 2015, watch from the sky. What you can see here is very yellowish because it was filled with sodium lamps, which were considered, and technically they are, inefficient lamps. It has been chosen in 2015 to change completely the whole lighting in the whole city, and I think it has been lost a very good occasion to create dark spaces. It has just been changed one by one, every single light spot. So what has happened is that from here we pass to this. So it may look neater and colder, but the truth is that this amount of light create also disturbance to the people who live there, like such as me, and to the animals and so on. And it has grown so much, not only Milan, but there is several cities in the world that have gone through the same process, that it has started the one that we call the dark therapy. What is dark therapy? For the one who think it's a lot of metalheads going to the shrink, no, that's a really wrong answer. Dark therapy is the practice of keeping people in complete darkness for an extended period of time in an attempt to psychological conditions, to treat the psychological conditions. The human body basically produces the melatonin hormone, which is also the one that makes you sleep, but is the one responsible for supporting the circadian rhythms. So it seems the darkness can help to keep the circadian rhythm stable. I tell you this because why this, as a lighting designer, I never realized until a few years ago. And when we design light, we are also designing darkness, because they are two sides of the same coin. If you light more, you take away darkness, and vice versa. So, and sometimes we are so focused on light up thing that we think that light is the only thing powerful. But here again, another thing. Now I'm basically proving you that also darkness has a certain strength. I'm proving you that darkness is able to switch your focus to the thing that I really want you to focus on, which is my voice now. So I really recommend also, when you make your presentation in the next time, to, for example, use the B key, the button on your keyboard, to black out your presentation and shift the audience attention to you. Not only that, but also to make black presentations, because, well, besides being more environmentally friendly, besides being more relaxing and being cooler, I would say as well, it also really shifts the focus on what really matters, which is the text that you want to pop up. Very often we do presentations which are white background with some black text, and everything is bright but the thing that you really need to focus. So when we play with shadow and light, we can really make all kinds of game. We can really shift also the impression you want to give, the feelings on people who watches. So you can, if you move it under, if you're on the side, from the top. These happen also, of course, not only with artificial light, but also with natural light. And for instance, if you don't design natural light, well, crazy thing can happen. So this is probably it's a few years ago where there was no possibility of daylight design in the UK, and they didn't run their proper daylight tests. But speaking, I want to tell you one thing about, of course, artificial lighting first. And this may sound a bit unreasonable, but paradoxically, the enemy of darkness is the energy efficiency. Well, it's not the enemy, but one enemy is the energy efficiency. And this is because we basically have found out that with less energy, we can light up more. So sometimes we can lower down half of the previous light source that there was before with a newer one, which is 4 times more powerful, but still very, very energy efficient. And some with a simplistic logic, which it's the kind of the city council might have, this could be seen as a positive thing. Now I show you just a small chart, which we use in Italy. I'm sorry about the Italian text, which gives like an energy label, basically. And I can assure that I can reach the best energy label, which is A+, even reaching out about 200 lux on the ground. And it's just crazy. It's just unnecessary. But they are so loose, this kind of label, that it's so easy to take advantage of this. So speaking about the energy consumption, lighting plays a really important role in this matter. For instance, inside a building, lighting accounts for approximately 33% of energy consumption. So besides the mechanical and all the other electrical devices, like this is 1/3. So that's why it's important to design correctly. Then 50% of total global electricity use is used for lighting. So the whole globe uses 15% of energy just to light up artificially. And then 5% of the CO2 emissions are caused by the lighting. So we are talking now very much why are we like all this efficient and yada yada, but there is a main question, and it's why do we light at night? And why is this guy talking about the Holocene now? The Holocene happens to be the most recent geological epoch where we are living now. It started approximately 12,000 years ago. Someone claimed that is at the moment we are living in Anthropocene, although it's not really been approved yet. And just to be clear, the Anthropocene is basically through the territorial and structural and climatic modification. It seems that humans have been able to influence the geological processes, but it's not been proved. Nevertheless, thinking about why there is a need to light up at night. Well, let's make it this way. The human that lives today is the Homo sapiens, and biologically, anthropologically, we are not very much different of what we were 200,000 years ago. So let's say that 50,000 years ago we discovered fire, and at that time the reason why we used fire, it was for safety. So it has a very very important impact on the safety, keeping the animals away, other tribes, and so on. Then with time it became like a practical necessity, so it became to allow the human to carry out activities also during nighttime hours that helped to evolve more and more. And then also to add economic development, so that also, yes, we can work at nighttime. But there is one important part with the lighting, and it's the social and the cultural environment development. So over time, lighting has acquired symbolic and cultural meanings, and human communities organize around illuminated spaces such as squares, churches, and other gathering places. So the lighting played a very important role in celebrations, religious ceremonies, and festivals, contributing to this sense of community. Of course, this aberration of these nighttime hours had also switched our circadian rhythms. I've mentioned now a couple of times the circadian rhythms. I guess everybody knows what they are, but I just repeat it. It's basically the body's natural 24-hour cycle that regulates our sleep and the wakefulness and our biological functions. So we used to live more in contact with nature. Nowadays, we are switching from what it was like a natural rhythm of life to a more digital rhythm of life, when there is so much more difference between day and night, and we became more and more distant from the nature, and this brought inside like the human culture nowadays, like two main thoughts, and one is the biophilia and one is the biophobia. With biophilia, you can see this need of having nature close to us, even in closed space, like in indoor space, such as even before it was in houses, homes. Now it's even in offices, restaurants. So you will see green walls and all kinds of natural elements. Biophobia instead is the opposite, is an aversion, a fear, and a negative reaction towards the nature and the natural elements. And to explain more in detail what biophobia is more or less the feeling you have at the moment by watching this picture. But let's go back to our question. Why is there a need to wake up, to light up at night? So I want to bring like a concrete example. We need to light up the outdoor spaces because we want this safe feeling. We want to see where we go, but especially for this safe feeling, for instance. Of course, now you cannot answer, but I would like to ask you a question. And I asked this question already in the past during this kind of presentation. And I want to ask you, in which place you would feel more comfortable, if this one, which is quite dark, or this brighter one? So I can tell you, most of the people that has answered this question has replied with the second one. So because it's more lit, it's lux-wise, it makes more sense. Except that this amount of light in that particular street, that's not allowed to see that little monster which is hidden behind there. You see those evil eyes? Yeah, those are the eyes of monsters. And this is because basically we really need to think when we design. We just don't have to fulfill a norm. We need to think what's around. Someone may say, yeah, but that's more bright. That's twice as safe, you know? So that's what a mayor could say. Well, you could reply, well, if more light, it's more safe, then during daytime, there should be no crime, right? And we know that that's not the case. Because criminals, criminal, I mean, needs light as much as you to carry out their activities. It has been proven, though, that not the light by itself, but switching on a light may scare and prevent a crime. But the light itself does not prevent any particular crime. So what I think it's really important to switch in our mental approach is to pass from an illuminance-based design from a luminance-based design. So theoretically, in a space like this one, if everything is dark outside, around, we could also dim down because everywhere around is dark. But in case there is like a brighter environment, then having a higher light could be smart. Then, of course, it could be changed so that we could use some adaptive light, so we don't have to keep the lights on all the time. So we can actually keep it dimmed or switched off if nobody is using it, and dim on just in case of a necessity. So now we finally pass to the interesting part. Well, to the darkness designer part. First of all, darkness designer is at the moment not like a profession. So if you now Google or search on LinkedIn, you will not find any ad seeking for darkness designers. It's at the moment still a provocation, but I really hope at some point we will get to the point when this will become an actual work, an actual job. So rather than asking who is a light darkness designer, let's see what is the role. Let's try to define with the role of the darkness designer. And first point, understanding if the project actually requires artificial lighting. I mean, here I can go very much into detail because I can show a mistake that I've done in the past. This is a project that I've done where I used to work in Sweden, and lighting design-wise, it was amazing. It looked amazing. We had all the kind of scenario that switched from dawn, from night to dawn, and it changed throughout the seasons. And even we had some spectacular effect with the wires. They like we were driving next to it, they disappear and then appear magically. So it was magic. I even done some crazy test lighting. I was actually testing actual fixture up there. It was an experience. But with hindsight, I thought, this is not respectful. This is not, what am I doing? I'm lighting up an electrical pole in the middle of a countryside. Like, in my opinion, it was just wrong. I made a mistake, and this will not happen again. So, for instance, next time someone asks you to light up a road in the mountain, is it really needed to have that amount of light? Is it really needed to have it when people is not there, where there is no cars? Nowadays, cars have very good headlights. But let's say that we want to light up for safety reason. Why don't we have sensors that really can turn on light when just we need it? I'm not saying to switch off every single light in the world. For instance, if we do want to light up something which we think has a meaning or a value, let's start to think, what is this building? What is the story behind? Is it telling us, is it a landmark? Is it telling us a story? Is it important for the city? Because, for instance, the other day I was walking around Milan again, and I found this horrible thing, which is a building with nobody's building, basically, with some office which nobody was using, and this facade lighting for nobody. I mean, didn't bring anything to the area. It was just a waste of electricity and a lot of light pollution. And here a lot of people will start to say, yeah, I mean, very nice what you said. Like this is just outdoor lighting. We just design indoor lighting, so we don't care about this thing. Well, wrong, because the windows, especially in glazed buildings, they are kind of your facade lighting. So the indoor lighting becomes facade, like outdoor lighting. So yeah, you can really think also when you switch off office building or a building, if it's really necessary to keep it on during nighttime. So we now understood if the project requires artificial lighting. Let's go to the next point, and let's start to understand which situations within the project requires lighting. So, for instance, I used to live in Como, which is on the Como Lake, and this is the shore of the Como Lake inside the Como city. Let's not discuss about the Kelvin and the sort of Harlequin mixture there is here. But in my opinion, a shore, someone may find it romantic or interesting. For me, a shore should be dark, without those kind of reflection right on the sea, in this case, the lake. And for instance, when I used to live in Sweden, the coast looked more or less like this. And this is my opinion, is very respectful of the environment and the nature. And I think this is probably the nicer way how to do this and more respectful. And I would like also you to wonder, if they ask you or to illuminate the nature, what is the meaning, what is the purpose behind? Because a tree does not need your lighting to live. It actually shifts its own regular way of living. Then let's go back to the next point. We usually establish what's the minimum, but we also need to establish what is the maximum level of a place. So, for instance, against this, the Italian norms about pedestrian streets, and very often we are so happy when you can reach the minimum. We are, yeah, I got it with the right uniform, perfect. It doesn't matter if you go even 2 times the level needed from the norms. The actual European norms actually prevent you to do this, but nobody really cares about this, and nobody really checks on this. So really focus also not only on the minimum, but also on the maximum you can reach in an area. Then, wait, sorry. Then, of course, if we are outdoor, we need to understand and assess the appropriate wavelength of light. For instance, every single creature has a different spectrum which is affected by. This is very, very unprecise, because every single species, every single animal has its own particular wavelength which is affected by. But it's just to give an idea. It happened actually that I work now on a project where there were bats, and we really tried now to be careful and use the light the wavelength, which was more respectful to bats, which was very warm. Some experiment has been conducted also to attract this kind of species of bats, but it ended up a bit weirdly in the end. But speaking still about the creature living in the nature, there is, of course, insects, which we don't understand about their importance, but we know, for instance, bees and other kind of insects. These insects are completely disoriented when they see lights, because they use stars to navigate, and when they see this kind of lamps, they feel they feel confused and they lose their sense. So what I suggest even here is to really be respectful and think more in a biological oriented way, especially with the color temperature. So for instance, in wintertime, you could use a bit colder color temperature because the insect's activity is very low. While in summertime, use more warmer, which gives less affection to the insects. And you can also switch basically from sunset to dawn, from colder to warmer, and to to reduce also the amount of light. So besides, what are the points of being a darkness designer? There's also what are the advantages of being a darkness designer. And there are advantages which are quite interesting. For instance, we can create an environment which is more respectful and for the needs of the fauna and the flora. So when we design in a specific place, we should really work with the local biologists to understand about with biologists to understand about local fauna or local flora. And again, this is not a matter only of outdoor light, but also indoor light. Do you know, for instance, that not only nocturnal animals are affected, but also migratory species? So just in the US alone, it's estimated that between 100 million and 1 billion birds die every year colliding with buildings, because there is artificial lighting, which is playing a major role in this massive death toll. So this was point one. Point two, we can create an environment which is more respectful of human needs and honoring our circadian rhythms. And there's nothing more to explain to this. Another thing is that we are creating like a more emotional and more contrast-rich environment. Do you know, for instance, that nowadays is emerging this trend of having travel of this stargazer who goes in the middle of this barren region in the middle of countries, just to be able to see in a very good way the stars. This is another interesting point. If you are like me, an independent lighting designer, there is strategic advantage against the manufacturers, because manufacturers tend to sell as much as possible. So it's there in their scope to sell as much as possible to a client. For a lighting or a darkness designer, it's important to have the right amount. So for us, we could also say to have no lights whatsoever, and we are giving a very good service to our client, besides also cutting some costs and being more efficient. Last but not least, that we reduce the energy and production waste, and this is of course energy saving. I'm a dreamer, so I live in an utopia, and my utopia is that in a near future, well, maybe far, but in the near future, there will be no artificial light whatsoever. The whole light that we can see, it will be implanted either in our apparatus, our goggle, or whatever. So we don't need to switch on any light. We create our light with our own hands, or there will be even the possibility for people to create their lights, but just by tweaking something in optical devices without being able to even switch on a light. And that will be the master of sustainability. So yes, this is an utopia, but as Eduardo Galeano used to say, utopia lies at the horizon. When I draw nearer by 2 steps, it retreats 2 steps. If I proceed 10 steps forward, it swiftly slips 10 steps ahead. No matter how far I go, I can never reach it. What then is the purpose of utopia? Is to cause us to advance. And that's exactly what we need to do. We need to advance. How do we need to advance? If you're a lighting designer, well, try to design responsibly. And if you're not a lighting designer, you're still part of this world. So try to do your part as a global citizen and try to light and consume more responsibly. You can wake up earlier and go to sleep earlier. I'm not your parent, but following the rhythm of the sun path, and it's a more sustainable way of living. And said so, I want to invite you. I want to thank you and I want to invite you to join the dark side.
Wow, Francesco, that was excellent, incredibly thought-provoking, and I'm sure many people will be thinking long and hard about what you've told us this evening. Thank you very much. Thank you for devoting your time, and I know the amount of preparation that goes into a presentation like this. So thank you really most sincerely from every one of us.
Thank you very much.